Let's hear it for Shane! Thank you, Kevin. It's really nice to be here. So I was 22 when I decided that I had a medical fetish. And I had, the way that I came to it, it was a circuitous sort of like heady thing. Because technically I was out of the closet, and like very technically I was sexually active. Like I could check like, yes, sexually active if asked, but like it was more up here than down here. And it was really based on like liberal arts. So I was like very sex positive, but I just wasn't having that much sex. And I was reading a lot of Dan Savage at the time. Woo! So like I said, a lot up here, not a lot down here. But part of it was, so I was technically out of the closet, but I really had mostly been with women. I'd been with a few men here and there. But I was like, I'm 22 and I've never had an STI screening. I'm gonna go get an STI screening. And I was still on my parents' insurance, and I was like, as sexually liberated as I thought I wasn't ready to be like, I'm getting an STI screening. So I was like, I saved up money and I paid out of pocket. But what I did is I went to one of those like urgent care facilities, which I didn't realize was like a really bad manners for medical stuff, because they're there if like you cut your finger when you're like slicing a bagel, or like you have the flu and you need to go back to work. But I went in and I was like, hello, I need you to make sure everything's fine in my genitals. And so the nurse was a little bit like, okay, well, we'll see what the doctor says. And the doctor was just fucking pissed. He was like, really didn't want to do it. And he was kind of trying to talk me out of it. Like, he kept being like, well, how do you feel? Do you feel okay? And I was like, well, 90% of STDs don't have any symptoms at all. I mean, thank God he didn't ask for specifics about what like being sexually active meant, because he would have laughed and I would have left and whatever. And I never would have gone on this journey. I never would have gotten here. So like he really was trying to talk me out of it, and finally he's like, okay, whatever, fine. Just take off your shorts. And so I take down my pants, and this was totally unexpected to me, but in the time it took me to take my pants off, I'd gotten like a huge boner. Just like a huge boner. But again, really in my own head about sexuality, and I was like, I'm sure that happens all the time. I'm not ashamed of my body. But I was a little bit freaked out. So then he kind of is like, and then he reaches in and he grabs a hold of my scrotum, and as soon as he does, I fucking shoot a little bit of pre-cum. Just not a lot, but like it was visible. Which, again, not unheard of. I'm not ashamed of my body. But we were both pretty fucking surprised. He, after it happened, just went, are you fucking nervous? He didn't say fucking. He said, are you nervous? And I was like, yes, because I was. But still, I've been nervous a lot, and I've never shot whatever. So I was like, what does it mean? What does it mean? Reading a lot of Dan Savage, all up in my head. And then he had a column in Savage Love about a medical fetish. And I was like, why didn't I think of that? Of course, I have a medical fetish. That's what's going on. So like, I just settled that in my head. I was like, well, one day I'll find the right person with the right safe word. And we're just, I was really ready for it. So I was 22, and I just discovered like the Men for Men Craigslist pages. I was a little bit of a late bloomer. I talked to people, they were like, yeah, when I was 13, I did that. I was like, whatever. But I found an ad. I was living in Madison, Wisconsin, and the ad said, the doctor is in. And I was like, what? So I opened the ad, and it's like, offering free, confidential, thorough medical screenings specializing in the genitourinary tract. And then it says, like, your pleasure and happiness is my number one concern, totally confidential, whatever. And I was like, this is perfect. So I sent like a super sex-positive email to him. I was like, I just want to lay out my boundaries, and I don't do sounding, and you can't use needles, and no blood play, and blah, 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 and this is my safe word. And I remember I was like, so tell me what you think about this. And he was like, it sounds like you might be interested in more fetish things, but this is more of just like a medical scene. And I was like, that's great, I'm so excited. So we set up a time, we set up a time to meet at his house. And I was like, by the way, my best friend knows your address, and if I don't call him in 2 hours, he's calling the police, which was not true. But again, I knew that it sounded responsible. So I'd asked him all these questions about whatever, but when I got to his house and opened the door, I realized I'd forgotten to ask him, like, are you 125 years old? Because he was really, 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 really old. So he opened the door, and by the way, I'm a fan of older gentlemen, and that is here, not here. But like this guy was real old. So he answered the door, and he had a cane, and he was wearing a white lab coat, which I appreciated, and a stethoscope. Oh, and he had his name. Well, I shouldn't say his name, even though I'm like 73% sure he's dead by now. Let's say his name was like Dr. Bennington. It said Dr. Bennington. It sounded a lot like that, embroidered on his coat. So he's like, oh, welcome to my office, please. He had a really bad cough. So he's like, well, we'll just sit in the intake room. And so his apartment is just like really full of stuff, and it really hasn't been cleaned in a long time. And everything is related to either like Catholic art. Like there's all these books that are like great Catholic art or like beautiful cathedrals, and actually it was cool. He had like bits of altars that he had chopped up and had hanging from the ceiling, which I actually found quite cool, but also intimidating. And then just gay porn everywhere, just so much gay porn. Like I don't know if there are any homosexual gentlemen, but do you guys remember Bellamy, or is Bellamy still a thing? Yeah. So he had, yeah. How can I forget? So he had a Bellamy calendar, which really, because it was just like a twink squatting with like a big heart on, and then it was like on the calendar was like, call Jan, blah, blah, like it was his real calendar. And I was just like, who has a life where they can just have that be their calendar? So whatever. Like I said, not here. So anyway, so he starts the spoken part of the exam, and it goes on for a long time where he's just like, do you have a history of diabetes in your family? I was like, yes, I do. And like, do you have a history of heart disease in your family? I was like, yes, I do. And one of the ones he asked me is like, do you smoke? And at the time I was a very heavy smoker, but I was in such denial, and I was so freaked out about it that I was like, no, I don't smoke, even though it was to like a fake doctor, like I was just so in the habit of it because I was so scared about insurance, but I was like, no, I don't smoke. So I don't know exactly how long the spoken intake section went, but it felt like a long fucking time. Like under an hour, but more than half an hour. It was and he was even like, we're almost done, and once we have this on file, we never have to do it again. Which is cool. He was verisimilitude. It was whatever. So then he was like, well, that concludes our intake procedures. Please go up to my office. And he points to his stairwell, and I was like, okay. And he's like, I'll see you up there in my office. And I was like, I get it. And I'm gonna go up. And then he went, it's my bedroom. And I was like, it's like, I know. I know. So I go up the stairs, and I walked past his bathroom, and I really won't forget it because he had like a big enema bag hanging in his bath. Oh, sorry. Okay. That wasn't the part that freaked me out. What freaked me out was he had like 7 giant butt plugs. Which again, mostly up here, whatever. And then like one of those, he had like a suction cup realistic dildo just like stuck on the wall. And then there was hand to God, there was a goddamn rubber ducky sitting on this, like a rubber ducky just sitting on. And I was like, what is happening in this person's house? So I go into his bedroom, his office. And by the way, I realized that he had sent me up because it was taking him like 20 minutes to get up the stairs. He was just like, just lurching. It's fine. We all are gonna age. And his bedroom had there wasn't even like shelving. It was just floor to ceiling VHS porn, gay porn on one wall, which I was really astounded by. And I remember one of them was called Brothers Peeing. And so I was like, oh, I assume it's like black guys, like brothers. But I looked, and it was like 2 white guys. So I think it was just supposed to be like, hey, mom's gone. You want to pee? I don't know what it was supposed to be. And he had a pile of dirty laundry, or I guess I assume it was dirty. I'm sorry, I don't mean to make assumptions about his life. But he had a pile of laundry, and on top were like 7 pairs of sequined like hot pants. So I still don't know what that was about. I don't know if he was dating a go-go boy or had a roller disco birthday party or whatever. But so at this point I was kind of freaked out, and I was like, maybe this isn't what I wanted. Maybe I should just get out of here. And then I just sort of like, I took a deep breath and I was like, no, you're a medical fetishist. This is what you came for. It's not perfect. Just go through with it. But honestly, and like this was really the more present thing. I was like, and I mean, if things get weird, I can throw him down the stairs real easy because it was like real frail. So he comes in, and then he's like, now we'll be beginning the physical portion of the exam. Please disrobe. And I'll be frank. I was like, good. This is kind of scratching the itch. This is what I want to role play a little medical power play. So he takes my pulse, and then he starts listening to my chest with his stethoscope. And he's like, take a deep breath, and I do. And then he said, you said you weren't a smoker. But it sounds like you have congestion in your lungs. And so I turned like beet red. And then I went, well, I have a little cold. I just have a cold. And then he gave me like a you're naughty look and said, you're supposed to tell your doctor if you have a cold. So then eventually, as I imagined, like he started doing a lot more tests in my genito-urinary tract. So then he was like, I have a proposal for you. I'm running a new study where it's a psychological study about the sex response system, entirely voluntary, but would you be interested? And I was like, yes, I get it. I know I'm supposed to. So he gives me a blindfold, like one of those like sleeping things, and I put it on, and he's like, here's how it works. I'm going to give you stimulation, and you tell me whether you prefer stimulus A or stimulus B. And what he does is then the first thing he does is he brushes my nipple with like a blush brush, like a makeup brush. He's like, stimulus A. And then he pulls out another, like a painter's brush, and starts brushing my nipple. And then he's like, stimulus B. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Oh, by the way, he also, I forgot, he said, if you consent to the study, this visit will be completely free. I was like, what? What? So we did that for, again, I mean, who knows? It seemed like a really long time to have someone like brushing you with paintbrushes. And he kept acting like as though it was an actual study where he's like, well, these results are very unusual. And I'm like, yeah, it's unusual that I showed up because I'm sure it doesn't happen. But you know what? I'm not going to lie. I don't mean to talk smack. I started enjoying myself. And, you know, I was trying as hard as I could to get into this headspace. And I was starting to really get somewhere, and it was weird enough, but you get sort of a nerd to it. And, things started intensifying, and the stimulations got stronger and with more sundry things. So it ended, the climax of it was he was stimulating my scrotum, and then he said, and for the final part of this study, I'm going to use an instrument doctors rarely use. And then he sucked my dick. And it wasn't bad. It really wasn't bad. Like I said, I hadn't had much in the way of sexual contact. It's what I came for, etc. But I do remember I was like looking up at his ceiling and looking at like the water damage in the cracks on his ceiling. And I was like, this isn't a doctor's office. And like I appreciated the white lab coat, but like he wasn't a doctor. So we finished and whatever, and I kind of immediately, like while I was staring at the ceiling, I was just like, there are some things that I'm probably just never, it's just gonna be in your head, and it's better left just imagining it, and pursuing it was a great idea, but like, it was a real lesson. Like, some things are really, truly better in your head, which you couldn't have told me when I was 22. I was like, no, it's better if you do it, you always do it. But like, I really was like, no, this is something that is a great idea, but in reality, everyone has aging bodies and weird quirks and Bellamy calendars and whatever. Anyway, he finished. We had a great time. He then pulled out a card that he gave me that was like, Dr. Bennington, MD, and was like, I'll expect you at a checkup in at least a month later. And I was like, absolutely. And I was like, never. Coda to the story. I don't think I had a physical within the next year. No boners. No boners at physicals for the rest of my life. And thank you. Thank you very much. And yeah, my sex life is a lot more down here than up here. So thank you so much.